I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're diving into a powerful book. It is called Cluster, and it is written by a terrific author, Dr. Robert J. McCunney. It is a high stakes medical thriller that fuses environmental danger, international terrorism, and unexpected romance. When a rare blood disease claims a young man's life, his brother, Dr. Dan Murphy, teams up with an ambitious journalist to uncover the mystery, leading them into a sinister web of global intrigue. It is a page turning ride through love, science, and political sabotage that will keep readers hooked from start to finish. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing and powerful book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, my pleasure, Logan.
So you're a doctor, you work at a top university hospital. Um, are these thoughts that you have that run through your head in between patients or something, that something like this could happen, and then you took the ball and ran with it and put it down on paper?
Yes, there's a lot of reasons why I wrote the book, and obviously everything in there is factual aside from the story. I mean, the science is accurate, the medicine is accurate. And one of the reasons I undertook writing the book is I've always had a fascination with writers like Robin Cook and Michael Crichton. And as a kid, I read all the Sherlock Holmes mysteries, and I've always been fascinated by physicians who were writers, Chekhov, Arthur Conan Doyle, and a lot of others. And I wanted to write a medical mystery in which there was an environmental cause, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that hazards in the environment can affect human health, number one. And number two, one of the puzzling areas of medical practice, Logan, is when people are told their illness is idiopathic. That's a fancy word meaning of unknown cause. And so I wanted to use an illness, and in this case, it was aplastic anemia, where most of the time it has an unknown cause, but in some cases it has a known cause. So I wanted to introduce a potentially life-threatening illness, this what's called aplastic anemia, where the bone marrow shuts down, and it can occur from exposure to various toxins. But more importantly, I wanted to show the process where people could actually find the cause of the disease by using publicly available information. And then with one of the protagonists, Anna Carlson, she's getting her master's degree at Harvard. And as part of her assignment, she has to get a publishable paper. So she works with the main character, Dan Murphy, a physician, and the two of them try to uncover the cause of the illness, not only in Dan's brother, but a number of other people who ultimately they learn work at this chemical plant. But in the process, they get embroiled in a terrorist plot involving Brexit in Northern Ireland,
And that's
engineered,
when you,
frankly, by a disaffected former British intelligence officer who lost his leg and his wife in a terrorist bombing in London. So he's sort of a doubly sympathetic, morally conflicted character because he wants to exact revenge, which is understandable, and how his life was so disturbed and destroyed, as it were. They'll also try to get into nefarious and these morally complex areas of avenging his own problem, but also trying to do something else because of his, frankly, antipathy towards Northern Ireland and Ireland becoming one republic.
it's a fascinating story. You've blended a lot of worlds together, from romance to terrorism to environmental hazards, as you mentioned. You spoke about Michael Crichton before. His books are famous for becoming movies. Have you envisioned Cluster as a film?
Well, in all due respect, I've been invited. I had one of the organizations, publishing company, contacted me and wanted to arrange a meeting with a producer. And I did actually have a conversation with a producer a few weeks ago who wanted me to develop a screenplay. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been not so interviewing and trying to assess a screenwriter. And yesterday I did locate a screenwriter who's going to write a screenplay for me for a cluster that we would give to the producer.
Wonderful. Well, I think it would be a great film, great locations, great intrigue, great characters. And like you said, it's all rooted in science, which makes it very, very interesting. Is the rare blood disease that you write about one that actually exists? I
Oh
believe it
yeah,
is, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything in there is factual. The people who got diagnosed with the disease have to undergo bone marrow transplants. So I spent some time at the bone marrow transplant center to understand all the policies and procedures that people go through. I wanted to make sure it was factually accurate. But one of the challenges, as you might imagine, Logan, in doing a book with a medical background is to make sure it doesn't come off like a lecture or a
Right.
medical textbook. Because I've written a half a dozen medical textbooks. There's a time and a place for the medical textbook, but I wanted it to be like Crichton, entertaining, but also informative was sort of my goal in writing it.
It's a goal you have succeeded in achieving, no doubt, because it's a fascinating book and it is a page turner and is nothing like a medical textbook. So you've definitely succeeded there. Talk to us a
Thank
little
you.
bit about the character of Parker Barrows and how he evolved in your writing process.
Yeah, well, Parker Barrows, I completely made him up. Clearly, in writing fiction, you need protagonists and antagonists. And Parker Barrows, I described as a gentleman in his late 30s who got married for the first time, and he was working in the British intelligence service. But as I noted in the book, in a anniversary dinner with his wife, there was an explosion in which he lost his leg and his wife died. And after that, he spent a time trying to determine who actually orchestrated the terrorist plot and tracked him down in Boston and went after him to try to exact revenge.
He's a great character, a perfect antagonist for Dan and Anna. Is Dr. Dan Murphy a little bit you?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked that. Maybe a younger Bob McCunney. He's in his early 30s. The 30s have
Yeah.
long passed me by.
Wonderful. Well, he's a great character, and I'm sure part of it is you. I guess part of every character is you when you're an author, and I think that's what makes it very, very interesting as well. Are you thinking about a sequel?
Yes, I just finished my second novel. I just got frankly, today I just sent it back to the developmental editor. And the second novel is also a medical mystery. And it follows Dan and Anna again. And in this case, Anna, as a result of her work in Cluster, gets invited to be a journalist for the New York Times. And Dan goes down to New York with her, unlike a lot of times in life where the woman follows the man. In this case, the man follows the woman. And I did some personal experience. I attended a lecture by a medical director of the United Nations and became acquainted with him afterwards. And we talked for a while. And I asked him if he could arrange time for me to spend a day at the medical clinic of the UN, and which he did. So I wanted to add realism to it. But frankly, is it okay to talk about the second book?
Sure.
Yeah, the way I went about it is one, I wanted to have a sequel to Dan and Anna and have their development occur. In this case, they met in the first book. In the second book, they end up moving in together. But people have asked me the process I undertake in developing a novel. At the risk of sounding a little too corny, I selected topics I wanted to learn more about. As you know, I've done a lot of writing, and it's not really fun writing about something you know too well. I wanted to write about something I wanted to learn about.
Yeah.
So I chose three major topics in the second book. I wanted to understand more about the genetics and physiology of aging. Why do some people live over 100? Why do some people live over only to 80 and so forth? Why do some whales live to be 200? Why do dogs live to 15? What is it about the genetics and the physiology of aging that leads people to have long lives? And I wanted to integrate that topic with genetic therapy. You may have heard of gene therapy through CRISPR, where the genes can be manipulated to produce different proteins. So I wanted to learn more about that. And just as I did in Cluster, I incorporated more of the political aspects. And frankly, my developmental editor says I have to be careful because I chose the Ukraine situation, Russia and Ukraine. So I
Mhm.
have Dan and Anna again. And then as the third character, I chose a Russian scientist, a Jewish Russian scientist who surreptitiously leaves Moscow. He had been doing genetic research for the Russian military, but he leaves Moscow under the guidance of a oligarch friend of his in the pharmaceutical industry. So he chose Dan, who will be working at the UN medical clinic, seeing unusual illnesses. Anna is working for the New York Times, and her charge is to try to understand more about the aging process. It's really a fascinating topic that I try to integrate into the book because there's medications now that have been shown to slow aging. So I figured if I had Anna as the journalist, she could be the metaphorical, as it were, translator between the complicated science and for the educated reader. So that's why I chose her. And then I chose the Russian emigre to have suspense to it. And so they're the three main characters, and it goes along. I actually started it out with an unusual illness that is very tragic, but there's a disease called progeria that's only affect. Have you heard of it? It's only
That's one where
affected
you
about
rapidly age?
when you rapidly age, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been shown that there's only one genetic mutation that leads to the production of a protein called progerin that
Mhm.
leads to advanced aging. And what's really fascinating, Logan, is as part of my research, because all the research is accurate, I came upon an investigator who did some studies on mice where they manipulated the genes to have the mice with progeria live longer. Believe it or not, there's actually a mouse model for progeria.
Hmm.
Francis Collins, who was the director of NIH and actually was the lead person for the Human Genome Project. So hard to believe, but they developed a model where mice get progeria, and through genetic manipulation, they cured the disease. So throughout the book, I've tried to raise the question if there's a certain genetic mutation that leads to advanced aging, are there genetic manipulations that can lead to long aging? And it's really I'm talking too much, but it's actually a fascinating topic because the largest age cohort, by cohort, I mean an interval of people like 60 to 70, 80 to 90, in the last 10 years is people over 100. There's over 100,000 people in the US over 100. There's over 500,000 people in the world over 100. So people are living longer. And I wanted to explore that in more detail. And obviously, I don't want to get into too much of the plot what the Russians do to the Ukrainian diplomats at the UN, but that's part of the plot.
It's
That's the second book.
fascinating as you talk about progeria and the work to combat it. You've got to ask the question, if you can slow aging in people with progeria, why can't we slow aging in people who don't have it? Right?
Absolutely. You know, there's a drug called rapamycin that
Yep.
some people are taking to try to delay the aging process. And there's some really interesting concepts that I learned in writing this book is that a lot of investigators these days are considering aging the disease, not so much the diseases associated with aging, like cardiovascular disease and cancer and Alzheimer's and so forth. Because if you look at it, you never see Alzheimer's in a 22-year-old.
Right.
You rarely see cardiovascular disease in a 19-year-old. So the concept is delay aging, and it's really fascinating. But as you know, with most topics in medicine and science, the more you dig into it, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah. But I think you are attacking both of these illnesses, whether it's environmental illnesses like the blood ailment in cluster, or rapidly aging, or the fight to combat aging in your sequel. I think it's an interesting vehicle to have it in a thriller where people can
Yes,
be learning about real life science while also being entertained. So I
that was
think
my
those are
goal.
great goals. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The book we've been focusing on today is called Cluster, a Potentially Fatal Disease, a Tantalizing Romance, and International Terrorism Converge with Explosive Consequences in this medical thriller you won't want to miss. And there's a sequel in the works that sounds just as much of a page turner. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me here today.
It was my pleasure, Logan. Thank you for your interest, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Great speaking with you as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for GBN. So long for now.